that moved through the veldt in high concentration but for extremely short periods of time. And during that time, as they brought down dry grasses and material to the surface and manured the ground, so that that material started a decomposition process with the microorganisms, and then provided a seed bed which provided more effective regeneration when the seasonal cycle came into a wet phase. I mean, from my observation, there were several farmers applying those principles very satisfactorily and producing high quality and very viable operations. And you began to see where the cattle had built up an area, a reintroduction of a huge amount of wildlife would follow them. The spacing between plants became very tight, and you could just visibly sense a vitality to the veldt. And that's in dry, arid areas. Animals, in some sense, are often blamed for desertification, and there's an element of truth to it, but I think it's actually the human management of the animals that's the issue, not the animals themselves.
You know, one of the strange things I have found is people not able to comprehend that right in their garden there's something to be harvested. We are harvesting our hydrocarbons from sunlight that fell on the earth all that way back, but when you tell people they could actually be harvesting sunlight right off their gardens when they mow their lawn and when they're pruning their trees, they look at you completely dumbfounded and don't realize that there's this energy sitting right in their gardens which can be turned into incredible use for that particular householder,
But if we look
or for that farm, or for that plot. And they don't understand that you're actually harvesting sunlight.
Well, if you consider what sustainability truly is about, it's been very commoditized.
Absolutely.
The whole movement's it's rancid. It's as bad as organic, or even permaculture falls into it. They've all just been neatly packaged, and out there. There's still control factors in it. And really, I think sustainability is about the relationship one has with oneself, with one's immediate environment, and how one interacts with that. And to do it in a positive way. I'm very much involved in food, water, energy, that side of things. I process a lot of alien vegetation into energy, into carbon, trying to find soil amendments. And we've developed quite some interesting stuff. We're busy setting up a center of learning that we have, where we focus on kids in their 20s. The idea is really to take a step backwards to the crossroads where greed superseded need, where we sort of lift the environment and the social structures out of the equation, and focus purely on a profit-driven society. I think as far as localized government goes, we're at the bottom of the barrel, and it's a race to the bottom, sadly. It's not saying, well, let's take whatever's left and let's try and do something with it in a positive way. I think that the ability to implement anything is long gone, if it was ever there. And really, my focus is very much on post collapse, as opposed to trying to hold on to something. I think the sooner the better. Unfortunately, if you look at our education systems and how it's conditioned the mind to be very consumptive. For example, a simple thing like NPK ratios. There's no scientific backup to prove that there's anything to it besides the fact that somebody's selling it. And you'll find that same company who's selling it is supporting the so-called soil science university division and giving you a degree to keep that treadmill going. The soil itself is, if you look at these big fertilizer companies, they basically, their attitude is we will handle anything that nature can throw at us. And that is a terrifying statement, but that's their catchline. The plant and soil, the relationship is purely just to hold it upright now. And the tests that I do up in the Northwest Province, basically 4% of the chemicals that the guys are applying are actually absorbed into the high levels. It's so anaerobic right now as well. The soil has become so anaerobic. The compaction through the ploughing, consistent ploughing, the releasing of the gases. All these things have a huge role to play in where we are now. And the answer from the big fertilizer companies, who are very much hand in hand with government, as it was a pillar of the apartheid government, chemical fertilizer.
No.
It's still exactly the same. The mentality is still there. Nothing's changed. And besides the fact that they're just using more and more now, because it's not staying in the top levels.
No.
So what we're busy doing now is we've developed a seed coating, call it a pellet.
Yes.
Now this is not necessarily new technology. They were using pellets, clay pellets, in the 1940s in Arizona. It's a very small amount of compost and wild grass to fight the desert encroachment and things like that. And they were using aeroplanes.
Yeah.
And we've taken that technology now, and so we've created a pellet, and it's about 5%, sort of 90% pure carbon,
Right.
with a very low ash content, which we inoculate with microorganisms.
Right.
We've got in that pellet, we've got rhizomes, we've got mycorrhiza,
Right.
as well as the seed, volcanic rock dust, and a bentonite clay.
Bentonite, yes.
And the concept behind it is to really just scratch the surface and apply the seeds that lifts up. So what's happening now is that we're finding we only need to be on the land, say, 4 to 5 times. So it's about a third of the time, which it makes a huge difference. And because we're giving the root structure, as now you either irrigate or it rains, the seed swells. There's germination within it, so there's no sort of insects or birds that are going to take the seed away. It's a lump of clay, and then there's germination takes place, and now the root zone that's created around it, because we're actually awakening the soil through this process. There's no more need for fertilizers or anything like that. Even we're reducing compost hugely. What we found is that the more you put these on, it's just like one big drug addict that just needs more and more and more. But there's so much now that's lying in the dormant soil, and waking that up and creating a relationship with all those organisms, as well as the root zone. You outcompete the roots, first of all. In fact, the roots can become food for that. And so suddenly we're getting exaggerated growth. Not only that, to now, if we penetrate further down using, for example, some long rooted grasses, we're able to take that carbon down and store. So in the soil deep down, it's acting as a carbon sink, so it's negating greenhouse gas. We're getting it down there, and we're storing, and we're now interacting with the soil. And so our growth has surpassed any experiment, up to 300%. What we're getting without putting on anything on top.
The bentonite is just releasing that moisture at a very, very subtle, controlled way, ideal for the seed. It couldn't wish for a better jacket.
Well, we're giving it the best wake-up call that we possibly can. We're using about 30% amount of water through this process. And the other concept, but what we're calling is the silver bullet. Within the fertilizer industry and the chemical industry, it's the unicorn. That it sort of doesn't really exist, and this is the closest thing. We've got a lot of critics obviously out there, and they can't fault it.
Well, I mean, look at the critics that are now surrounding a seed in a coating of chemical. All the phyto little governors that are in there, they just get knocked before they even get a chance to come into life.
The government's put a lot of money in, developing, trying to get emerging farmers into the channel. Unfortunately, they're just perpetuating the whole problem because nothing's changed as far as the implementation of the agriculture. But what is very clear is that agriculture is a debt-based industry. Okay. And now, historically, the farmer would provide for his grandchildren. There would be provision. It was the whole thing. He's passing on debt.
Oh yes, massive.
the financial debt, it's an environmental debt, and that's really now. I have, and that's why they're between.
What are they going to inherit?
Well, they can't. Right now, they're inheriting nothing. My kids who sort of between 9 and 13, my younger kids are. Their ability to nurture children one day, to me, in mine, I'm a little bit. Is zilch, all right? They don't have a chance.
Yeah.
They don't, at the current trajectory, there's no way they can do it. Now, they're not going to listen to me either. I'm an old fool, and I don't believe a leopard can change its spots. I think we can just learn to identify our spots and we learn our weaknesses.
Your children, my grandchildren.
Yes, but kids in their 20s right now,
Yeah.
that's who we've got to be focusing on. These are, unfortunately, the kids in their 20s are all piling into universities. They think having a certificate is going to... it's going to give them a means to earn a lot of bucks out there, and then they want to get out of that system. You see, unfortunately, it doesn't work like that.
The bucks aren't there.
It's not there. It's all debt. We all know that now. But then they're not seeing that, and unfortunately, they're perpetuating this problem. So the conditioning in the universities, of course, are very they're geared to support this hamster wheel that we're on right now. This absolute devastating cycle that we're in is playing out to be perpetuated. So I'm getting these kids now, and from all around the world, and we are now.
Is there quite a barrier to you to actually break through to get them to understand, or do they take up your thinking quite quickly?
Well, yeah.
I'm generalizing.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, not everybody is going to get. But the thing is what I try to is don't follow me. I'm part of the problem. I come from a very dominated education system. I rather these kids who've still got a bit of chance explore that within themselves. They know that something's wrong, but they're not empowered to act upon it. I mean, I was in Germany recently. I work with several universities in Germany, in Scandinavia, and basically we just got a whole lot of cookie cutters. These kids not only look the same, they speak the same, they're all following. It's quite terrifying.
It's all mirror image, even though the language is different, the continents are different. It's just rhetoric all the time.
And that's why I say the time is not now.
No.
The time was 15 years ago. We've got to look at restructuring now. How are we going to restructure it?
But you mentioned the word empowering, and in my book, empowering, I think, is actually a terrible word. I believe it's actually worse than the word that we use as apartheid. I believe that half our problem is because people are told that they are empowered, and they then have an expectation level based, or that empowering gives them, rather than me saying that we're going to enable them. And I think the enabling side is what I look at. To me, if I can enable someone and open their minds to think about it and say, right, once you have enabled yourself, you will then become powered. That until you've enabled yourself, or somehow you've become enabled either through talks or learning or research, or the case may be, the enabling is terribly critical in my book. Ladies, you follow. So in a country where this is so much the politica speak of empowering this one and empowering that one, and you've got to have the power, it then creates a whole level, and then when they aren't empowered, there's this huge disappointment.
We had a little can that took selfies past Pluto.
Okay.
We got a go-kart on Mars, apparently. Yet
and on an asteroid.
And on an asteroid that came whizzing by.
That's right.
Yet we have 1 billion starving people.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so there's something fundamentally wrong with this whole thing. We really have a strange way of thinking right now, and it's not a sustainable way of thinking.
Yeah.
We've got to localize everything now. We've got to move away from this control system that we're in, and we've got to understand that we are the problem. I am the problem, and I clearly know that, and I've always known that. And I don't try and hide that.
That's not easily accepted.
Well, I don't really give a damn if people accept it or not.
But the general populace don't accept that as a problem. That it must be business as usual, and it can't be business as usual.
Well, there is no such thing as. I mean, that's complete perception of reality. That is so far. We are in major trouble here. I have kids. Okay, and we're in trouble. Unless I do something now, I'm not giving them anything. We're giving them a major problem. In fact, we're diminishing their ability to survive. So everybody is in such a rush and so obsessed to go out and earn a living at the very expense of the organism that keeps them alive.
That's right.
Now, what the hell is that?
Yeah, yeah. But it is so basically fundamental that often fundamentals are very difficult to understand. You can say to a person, look, if you're going to succeed in this thing, you need water. I said, yeah, but we've got to do this. I said, you do nothing unless you've got the water. So unless you actually make yourself relevant to the authorities that will understand you need the water, you ain't going to survive. So in fact, your organization is just on a downhill path, and it'll fall off the edge because you actually don't have something as simple as water. Forget about the quality of the water at this stage, but just the water.
Now, there's no point in standing on the street corners and preaching and whatever. You've got to get inside the corporation, you've got to get inside government, and you've got to turn it from within inside. As toxic as that is, okay. And as I say, I travel 15,000 kilometers a month. Okay, through all the colleges in the agricultural sector. It's futile. It's a waste of time. I know it's a waste of time. My ego makes me do it, and it's ridiculous. Okay, because right now I need to be on top of a mountainside and looking after my family and making sure that my neighbors are being fed and they've got pointy guns away from me. Okay, and that's what I should really, really be doing right now. But there's still that inside me of wanting to save it all. And it's a big problem that I've got. But at the same time, we've got to be implementing stuff. We've got to be doing stuff. And the understanding of carbon and what we can do with it, and hydrogen energy and all these things which is freely available to us, and being able to implement it is a complete revelation. From a water purification point of view, from soil amendment, from energy creation, it's the most efficient way to do it. And I'm sure once we really explore it, we'll find even more efficient and less harmful things. So what I'm doing is I'm just clearing up all the alien vegetation in the Cape Peninsula, which there's a huge amount, and I'm turning it into pure carbon. And I'm using that as water purification, as soil amendments. We're making these seeds, we're getting it in there.
China's gone into that. The Pope got into it. So these are motivating large volumes of large groups of people and changing their thoughts. Whereas you and I might go along and change the thoughts of a few youngsters at a time. That's terribly critical. But it's all the different layers. And I believe that there's a great change happening in terms of the chaos theory right now. And I'm hopeful that will be the actual vehicle over time which will start to change. And if that compartmentalize the Monsantos of this world into such a corner that ultimately they will not be able to get where they think they were going to get to. There are cities now that are taking Monsanto to court, right in Monsanto land. I mean that they would never have expected.
I think we're not radical enough. I think the fact, again, that we have 1 billion starving people, the fact that in my travels I see the condition of this. We cannot feed ourselves anymore. No. We can't. No. It's gone beyond the tipping point. We cannot feed ourselves. No. And there's nothing out there that's showing me that that's really seriously changing right now, because everybody's grossed on social media for possibly the wrong reasons.
Oh yes, yes. Oh, yeah.
It's being used. It's this other war. There's so many wars going on right now, and I think if individuals could just unplug from that and focus, as you said in the beginning of this discussion, on their garden and circumvent being hooked in to a failed system.
If you go back to the desert bowl of America, the human is actually probably the most efficient animal on Earth.
Oh yes.
We put garbage in and we eat garbage, and we actually can end up doing quite a lot of things, both mentally and physically, which no other animal can do it. An elephant is very big and heavy and can do things, and an ant can pick up 5 times its own weight or whatever the ratio is. But the human, at the end of the day, can actually go along and plow and produce that, and that was quite interesting. Horses take up too much space, and if you go through time, when the whole issue with farming came in and the tractor came into being and they plowed these huge areas, they just forgot about the soil. And it was actually an act of Parliament to disregard the soil. It wasn't an issue. And in a space of no time at all, the soil started to disappear.
Yeah.
They found soil 400 miles out at sea on the deck of a ship
Sure.
when the winds blew.
Sure.
And so they eroded away 2 meters of their topsoil
Yeah.
over an area which is just mind-boggling. And then Russia repeated the same thing a couple of years later.
Money became the reason for everything and not just a part of that process. So unless we can start to balance within our trade social ramifications and of course environmental, that's the critical one is the environmental bubble.
Yeah.
I mean that makes 2008's financial bubble look like effervescence. This is the mother of all bubbles now, where nature's just not producing. We cannot go and forage anymore.
No.
We don't have the ability to do that anymore.
But you're not allowed to.
No, well, exactly. It's, you're not allowed to. Fresh water. So the very fundamental to our existence of air, water, and food have been controlled and governed so much to suit a very small amount of people.
Yeah.
And that's why we're in this situation here right now. And people say for themselves, well, I'm not going to be a part of that anymore. I'm not going to buy that product anymore. So I'm going to educate myself around this thing.
Well, it's all the grids, isn't it? We talk about getting off the grid, and everybody thinks you must get off the grid for power.
How many farmers have lost their lives in the last 20 years?
Well,
Where's the outcry around that one?
Did you see that gravestone put up? Rest in
No.
peace.
Okay.
It's a farmer a week.
Okay, yeah, exactly.
Essentially about a farmer.
These are the people who are providing food, So this is again, it goes to the conditioning, where the mind's at. So all these NGO, PBOs, NPOs out there that everybody's like feeling really good about throwing money into all sorts of things and stuff like that, and they go out there and look how good we are, we're helping the poor little people and all these sort of things. And then we're giving education, we're providing jobs, we're just turning them into slaves, it's brilliant, And it's terrifying. And the thing is
very, very consistent basis, and what it is doing, frankly, is doing us a little favor. They are absorbing the heat that could have gone to the land